Good afternoon. This afternoon I'm going to show you how to draw this set of cabinets, one base and one upper. But before I start drawing, I just want to give you a quick tour just to show you what we've done here. The upper and base were drawn primarily using CabWriter, but we did add some trim to the top, crown molding, and some base trim here. I did put some draw pulls in here. And we extended these sides and made these S-shaped curves just to give it a little bit of a furniture look. So let's start by just taking a quicker look. Notice this trim, nice and smooth. And I got this off the internet and traced it using Bezier curve tools and the follow me tool to create it. It's actually in 3 parts. This is 1 part, 2 parts, and this is actually the same part as this but flipped. We'll get to that later. This was simply a matter of drawing this cabinet using sheets here instead of end panels, and then extending them and creating this curve and cutting it out. I also added this little shelf. Nothing fancy about the countertop or the backsplash. This profile was created by simply creating a 3/8 inch round here, 1/4 inch round here, and then a 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch rabbet here. So let me view basically the CabWriter components. I'm going to take the doors, I'm going to take the upper doors and upper draw fronts off. And you're left with the draw boxes. You'll see later on we had to compensate for this small draw front. I believe it's 4.5 inches. Yes. And we had and notice also that because the bottom of the cabinet is insetted, I'll show you that. The bottom of the cabinet is actually inset. Come around back here. The bottom of the cabinet's inset 1 1/8 inch. And what that does is it causes the bottom to be raised above the bottom rail by 3/8 of an inch. That cuts down on the opening here. So we have to take that into account, and we have to choose a draw box that's going to leave us 9/16 of an inch gap on the bottom here, or clearance, and 1/4 of an inch clearance on the top. So we'll get to that later on, how we did that. Otherwise, this is besides this end, which I'll get to later, this is a standard divided upper cabinet. Let's take the, notice in the base that I combined slab draw fronts with a standard frame and panel door front. And again, that just helps give it a little bit of a furniture look. I'm going to look just at the cut list here and take the trim away. And notice one of the changes I made, well, I made several changes. One change was I took this side and I extended it using the push-pull tool, extended it to come down to the bottom of the ladder base. Not all the way to the floor, in fact it's about 1/2 inch off the floor, but it comes down to the bottom of the ladder base. Further, I took the ladder base, I took the end trim pieces or applied trim and removed them. I kept the front trim, and I moved these ribs and stretchers to the end to slide up against the sheets on the ends here that I extended. I did the same thing here. I slid these to the right so that they would end up against the sheet that I extended. I also added one more set of ribs than CabWriter drew, simply by copying one set and moving them over. But that's about all I did to change the base cabinet. And let me get rid of the countertop. It's called custom parts here. And I'll get rid of the draw fronts and the doors on the base. And the doors. And again, if we look at this face on, I think that's this view here. You notice that I allowed 9/16 of an inch clearance on the bottom of all draws, 1/4 of an inch on the top, although there may end up more than 1/4 of an inch because we couldn't select a draw front or a draw box that used all of the area. But also notice that I changed the draw bank here, the 3-draw bank combo, so that these two draws were the same size. And again, that just gave us more of a furniture look. Let me get rid of all this. Bring in the ladder base. And as I mentioned, that's pretty standard. But if you look at the draw, if I include the base trim in here, notice that I kept the base trim, the applied front here, even though I deleted it on the ends. I kept it in the front, and that's so as you look in here, under here, you will see a nice finished hardwood. I also had to add 2 little pieces of hardwood, one here and one here, just to finish it off. Other than that, things are pretty much standard. So with that, let's get to actually building this. Offline, I built this wall and marked up these construction points just to save a little video time. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the base cabinet. And I'll start with my story. Oh, what I should mention is I'm going to start off using the refresh factory settings. And it reminds me that to make sure I did that, I should save my file, which I will do. That's a baseline set of settings. Now, there's a few things I know I want to do. Recall that in the base, we have a bottom rail, so I've got to make sure I change that. The draw fronts are slabs, and these 2 draws are equal size, so I need to change that. So let's do that. I'll go to my CabWriter settings, and let's first go to the face frame. I'm going to change these 2 draws in the 3-draw bank to 9 15/16. I'll change this one too. And if I recalculate or update, the reason it's saying there's something wrong is I haven't yet added the bottom rail. That 9 15/16 was based on a bottom rail. So let's put the bottom rail in. And now the 3-draw bank is updated and it's correct, but the other 2 are not. And I'm not going to worry about those at the moment because I'm not going to use a 2-draw bank or a 4-draw bank. But the thing I need to worry about is I've got my base rail. I need to change the draw fronts to slab draw fronts on the base. So let's update that. Now we can close this and we're ready to draw. So let's go to the story stick. I'm going to start off here. And I'm going to use a left end sheet because this is going to end up being hardwood. And if I draw it as a sheet, it'll be easier to change it to hardwood. And I'll go here and use a right end sheet. And then this is just a connector. By the way, I designed this so that this is 15 inches from this guide point to this guide point. And the overall it's 51 inches. So I think this is something like 30 inches or maybe 31 and a half. 31 and a half. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's hit end here to start choosing what it is we want. Okay, we wanted, the first cab is going to be a standard base with draw. One door and one draw. The next one is going to be a draw bank combo with 3 draws. And there we go. We've got our base cabinet. It was that simple. All right, now I want to make some changes to it. First thing I want to do is I got to fix up the toe kick. And let's see if I can do this. No, the first thing I want to do is I want to extend the sides. And so I'll choose this side. I'll unlock it. Edit component. Use the push-pull tool. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to bring it down to the base of the toe kick. Notice I'm touching a part of the toe kick here. I'm going to bring it down to the base of the toe kick. Notice, let me get out of edit component mode here. Notice that didn't bring it all the way down. It's about a ½ inch left, I believe. It should be anyway. Yes, it's a ½ inch. And while I'm here, the other thing I want to do, I want to get rid of this trim piece. I'm going to extend the ladder base, so I don't need that. So I'll unlock it, delete it, and I want to bring this front trim piece all the way to this sheet. So I'll unlock that, and I'm going to edit it as well. I'm going to pick this line right here. I'm going to rotate here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to pick this line, just the line. And with the aid of the move tool and locking my axis, I'm going to move that along the red axis. So I'll lock the red axis with the right arrow key, and I will touch this. That means I'm moving that line over to touch the side. And now I've got to move the other line as well. So I'll just come in here like this. Select that line. And with the move tool and the help of the red axis key, this time I'll touch this point. Now notice I have a butt joint and it's butting up against the side. So my work here I think is done for now. I'm going to come back and get the toe kick in a moment. I'll go down to the other end and do the same thing that I did here. I'll first get rid of this. And I'll select this end, unlock it, edit component. I'll use the push-pull tool to bring it down to the bottom of the ladder base. By the way, I'm using keys on the keyboard now just so I can speed things up a little bit. I'm going to edit this now. Do the same thing here, make a butt joint out of that. So I'll choose this line. I'll use the move tool along with the red axis lock. And I'll bring it to that point. I'm going to come around here. Do the same with this one. Use the move tool along with the red axis lock and bring it to the same point as that. Now I've got a butt joint. Right there. And now what I'll do is I'll get rid of the let's just bring in here the base ladder. That's good. Now I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to move that. I'm going to copy that and move these. So I'm going to unlock them. First thing I'll do is I will extend this one. Edit component. Move this end to come out to that dimension. I'll do the same over here. Well, I've got that in edit component mode. Bring this out to here. Now I'm going to move, oh no, I might as well do the same thing with the back tie. Bring that out to there. And I'll go around to the other end and do that. And now it's just a move and copy operation. Now, this may require a little arithmetic, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure this, 33 3/8. Let me just go offline and divide that by 2. Okay, 16 11/16 is what I calculated. So So I'm going to copy and move this 16 and 11/16 along the green. And there we go. So now the ladder base is done. And I can bring in everything else. And I'm about ready to put my trim on. Might as well do that right now. And I'll start by putting a construction line here. 0. Distance just to mark that edge. And another one to mark this edge. And so I'm going to create. Well, the other thing is I've got to come up here 3/4 of an inch, half the way up. And just to mark that on the other side, I'll bring this up to here. So now I'll know where I am over here. I'm going to create a 3/4 inch wide piece of trim there. Notice if I look down in the VCB, down here in the VCB, that the 4 3/4 is the correct dimension. The other one is an approximate dimension and it's not correct. So I need to change that to 3/4 of an inch because that's the thickness of this trim. All I need type is comma 3/4 because it's the thing after the comma that I'm going to change. So I'll simply type comma 0.75, enter, and there you go. I got my trim. And now I want to create the 3/8 inch radius here first. So using this tool, well, I can use this tool. I'll come out 3/8. That's interesting. That's the center of that. Let me come down 3/8. And from there, why didn't it give me a construction point? Well, I'm going to use this tool. Down 3/8. I got a construction point that time, but not for long. No, I'm not seeing my, there we go. Now I can see it. I can barely see it. Okay, so I'm going to use the this tool here. I need my 3/8 over here. Now I can use this, and that. That gives me that 3/8 inch radius. Now I want a 1/4 of an inch radius. I'm going to use this. Come down 1/4. And I'll use this one. Make a 0 there. Start out here. Go from here. Whoops, that should be, whoops, whoops, made a mistake. Got to come in an eighth here. Got to leave room for the rabbit. There we go. Now I can use that one. That's a 1/4 of an inch radius. And finally, I'm going to use my pencil tool, come down an eighth, and out an eighth. And now I'll get rid of that top line and this line. I've got my outline for my trim. So let me do this. Now let me use the Follow Me tool, but before I do that, I need a path for the Follow Me tool. So I'm going to start right there. I'm going to go from there to here. To that point. I'm going to go around the side, continue with my line tool to here and end it. And I'll select that line. Oops. And I'll select the part on the other side. Notice what I'm doing. I'm just selecting that path. And now it's a simple matter of zooming in here, choosing the Follow Me tool, and there we go. We have our trim. Oh my goodness. Let me back that up. The trim is in the wrong place. My path was in the wrong place. So let me get rid of my path. Let's do that again. The path wants to go from here to here to here and back here 24 inches. And now we'll choose this line. I can't choose it that way, or else I'm choosing that cross section too. Let me just choose that. Control. And this one. Now I've got that path. Now we're good to go. So I'll choose the Follow Me tool. And that's more better. All right. Now I want to make a little archway here. See, what I'm doing is I want to make this little archway here. That's an easy thing to do. What I'm going to do is bring this up, I believe, 3 inches. Bring that in. Why is that 2 inches? It should be 3. Was this one 3? Yep. And I need another 3. You'll see why in a moment. All right, now I got to use my arc tool, and I'm going to start out here this time. That's why I needed the other 3. Click there, Click here, click there. There, there, there. Now I need a line. Now with the push-pull tool, I'll just push this back. And I have my trim. Now that's a one-piece trim right at the moment, and it's still not even a component. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to triple click on this. And I'm going to make 2 copies of it. One copy, I'm just going to bring it out here. And then I'm going to make another copy. Bring it out here. And I'm going to zoom in real close. I'm going to look for missing lines. Here's one right here. If this were a miter cut, there would be a line right there. Let's look around the bottom. Again, if this were a miter cut, there would be a line right here. And let's go around. All right, we got that line. All right, so now what I can do, I'll go take a somewhat of a top view here, and I'm going to use the select tool in the left to right fashion. And I should get rid of my construction lines here. And I'll delete these. And I got some more to delete. Left to right, but not touching. Oh, I see a problem. Guess I didn't get that line. I'm going to back up. I'm afraid I've done so much flipping around here, I forget which one I was working on. Okay, it's this end I'm working on. I think I erased the wrong end. I did. When I went to the top view here, so we'll do this again. I'll do it this way. That's better. Now what I've done is I've deleted all the pieces except what makes up a side piece. And I'm going to do the same thing out here, but this time it's going to be the front. But first, again, I have to once more add the lines. So we'll do this a little more consistently this time. All right, now that we've done that, I should be able to take the select tool in the left to right motion. The reason I'm doing left to right motion is because when you do that, anything that is in the bounding box, even if it's partially in the bounding box, will be selected. Whereas if I went right to left, notice nothing gets selected unless I did this. And now some of this will get selected. In fact, some stuff I really don't want will get selected because it was completely in the bounding box. So the left to right allows me to do that and get rid of just those side pieces. Same thing here. And what I'm left with is front trim. All right, now I'm going to make them components. I'll just make that a component. I'm not going to worry about the name right at the moment. And I'll make this a component. And now I can select all of this and get rid of it. And I will replace it with this. I think that goes there, but I'm not positive. Let's do this. There we go. That seems right. I'm going to pick this one up with the move tool. I'll just move it close. I don't have to get it exact right at the moment. And then I'll get it exact by picking up that point right there and connecting it to that point right there. All right, now this is cabinet number 5. If I select this and look in this box right here, notice it says cabinet 3. Now, the reason it's cabinet 3 is I have 2 of them, actually not in the picture, but in the components library, which I will delete later. But right now it's cabinet 3. So what I want to do is I want to rename these parts. I want to assign them to cabinet 3. And I'm going to do that not by changing the name here. Don't ever take a CabWriter component and change its name here. We always want to change a CabWriter component's name using this tool right here. Rename component. And what I want to do is, first thing I'm going to do is going to type in here the cabinet number. C3L. The C and L have to be capital letters, and the 3 is the cabinet number. I'm going to make this a custom part for now. Actually, I can make it a toe kick part. I'll make it a toe kick part. And I'm going to give it the name of end trim. And I'll also give it the instance name of end trim. And notice now the full definition name of this is C3LTK for toe kick, end trim. I'm going to protect it so that it can't be changed. I'll explain CabWriter protection later. And I'll say, okay. It's telling me that at the moment there's no dictionaries, meaning that we haven't used Cutlass Bridge to assign it a material type. And I'll do that right now since it's reminding me to do it. So I'll bring down the extended entity info. And I'm going to make this rough material, rough lumber, maple. And I want to resize it because I want it cut out a little wider than its finished dimension. So I'm going to cut it out, 3/4 of an inch wider and a little longer than its finished dimension. Let's say 1 inch. Okay. Now while we're at it, I'll just set this off the screen here for the moment. I want to rename this. Oops, I'm just going to select it and use the rename tool. And again, I'm going to connect it to C3L. It's going to be a toe kick part. I'm going to give it the name front trim. And I'm also going to call it front trim here. I'm going to protect it. Say OK. All right, one last thing. I have to put the piece on the other end. So I'll choose this piece. I'll copy it. And flip it. I'm going to flip it along the green because that's how I copied it. And now I'll attach it to the other part. Now while I've got that part selected, I'm going to change its instance name. Now I can change the instance name in either here or here, but I'm going to do it here. I'm going to make this right end trim. In other words, I'm not changing the definition name, I'm only changing the instance name, right end trim. So I'll go to the other end, I'll select it, and I'll call this left end trim. All right, one last thing I want to do here, so I can get rid of some of these construction lines. Don't need to have them around. One last thing I want to do is I want to put a top on. And let me get rid of the wall for the moment. I'm going to use the rectangle tool and create a face from there to there. I'm going to select that face and their edges, and I'm going to use the offset tool, bring that out 1 inch, and I'll delete now the inner face and edges. Last thing I want to do, well, not the last thing, but another thing I want to do, bring that edge back in. I don't want that protruding into the wall, so I'll bring it back in 1 inch. Now I'll select the whole face And with the push-pull tool, I'll bring that in up 1.25 inches. And I now have my countertop. Triple click, make it a component, and I'm going to assign it to the cabinet, C3L. I'm going to call it a custom part, call it a countertop. And I'll give it the instance name countertop as well. I only have one in the drawing right at the moment. And there you go. The bottom is done. That's it. And now later on we'll put the draw pulls on. But that ends this base cabinet. Alright, this video is already about 48 minutes long, so what I'm going to do is break this into 2 parts. And we'll finish the upper cabinet and the upper cabinet trim in the second part. So have a good day, and I'll see you in the next part.